So guys, welcome back to the channel. And on today's video, well, first of all, I've made a little adjustment to my camera setup and I have lowered it. So I want to hear your opinion. Do you like this setup right now where the camera is like looking right at me? Obviously you've got a different perspective of everything around me, because before I was probably about, I don't know, 8-10 inches higher and the camera was just above me, kind of looking down. Anyway, change is as good as a holiday, and I figured I'd mix things up for today. But if you're still here after that rambling about my camera positioning nonsense, thank you. Today we're going to talk about injuries and specifically how you can avoid them. Let's get into it. Thanks for sticking around. Okay, so I came across an article on the London Marathon's website, and I feel like this is the closest I'm ever going to get to the London Marathon. So I figured that's what we talk about today. Anyway, the article is titled 10 Ways to Avoid Running Injuries. And look, some of these are going to be pretty basic. In fact, if you've been running for a while, you're probably going to roll your eyes, but that's okay. I am here for the eye rolling, especially when it is about my content. Because even if we're talking about stuff that we all already know, it helps us feel smarter, right? Confirmation bias when we talk about things that we already know. So the first tip to avoid running injuries is to ease into it slowly. And I'm finding it difficult to keep a straight face, but that really is the first thing on the list. And I'm only laughing because, yeah, we do know this. But if you are a brand new runner and you've decided that, yeah, I want to run a marathon, easing into it slowly is actually really good advice. Now, if you're a new runner, it's not going to take long before you too are rolling your eyes at such simple advice, like ease into it slowly. And for those of us that have been running a while, this is also a really good reminder, because it is very easy to just go too hard too soon. And of course, we all remember the old running adage about injuries: too much, too soon, too fast. And by easing into things slowly, you are going to be avoiding all three. Okay, the second way to avoid a running injury is to make haste slowly. At least that's what it is on the website. Oh, and by the way, I will place a link to this article in the show notes below in case you want to check it out for yourself, but honestly, I wouldn't bother. I'm actually breaking it down pretty good here. Now, the whole idea behind making haste slowly is that you don't do too much too soon. In fact, the article does point out that it wants you to focus on progressive overload. And again, this isn't just for new runners. This is a reminder, a refresher course for us that have been running for a little while. So perhaps we take a season off of like dialed in training, and then when it comes time to like start training for a specific race, it's very easy to think to ourselves, I just want to pick up where I left off. I'm just going to jump right into those mile repeats. No, make haste slowly. So if you're just getting started, perhaps work on the frequency of your running. And by that, it means perhaps you're starting off by running 3 days a week. And then in a month or two, you build that up to 4 days a week, 5 days a week. And then once you've gradually built up the frequency, maybe it's time to start working on the intensity. So maybe to start off with intensity, you will incorporate some strides. And those are short sprints at the end of your run. So if you're going out for an easy run, maybe you would wrap up the run, maybe in the last mile or so, with a couple of very short sprints. Now, I really should be saying that because that's how I do it. But technically, strides are supposed to be done as an individual workout. So you would finish a run and then you would do short amount of sprints, just building up to say 5K pace, and then gradually slowing down and then fully recovering. So that could mean taking a couple minutes off in between and then repeating as many times as you see fit. Maybe 4 the first time you go out, you could build up to 6, 8, 10. I don't know, it's up to you. But after a little while building in strides, maybe you can focus on some intervals. And of course, intervals can be whatever you want: 200s, 400s, 800s, 1200s, kilometer repeats, mile repeats. The list goes on. But the point is that you build up slowly. And then of course, once you have started running on a regular basis, maybe you've built in a little intensity, perhaps it's time to maybe add in a little more time. So maybe run a little further. But I'm going to leave that up to you. There are unlimited good coaches out there that will provide you a detailed plan to take you where you want to go. There's also a lot of free generic plans on the internet. So choose what works best for you. The third tip to avoid injury is to build in rest and relaxation. And this is my favorite. And also it's my least favorite, because we all know that we get stronger when we're resting, right? We get stronger when we sleep. We get stronger when we're not running. We break down the muscles when we're working out, when we're running, and then we build back stronger when we're resting. Build that into your training plan. Make it a part of your training. Or you could do like I do. You could build in some time at the end of the day where you sit on the sofa and you eat a bowl of ice cream and you call that training or recovery. But either way, you do you. As long as you're resting and recovering, you're getting stronger. I mean, first of all, you have to do the work. But if you do the work and then you rest and recover, you're getting stronger. Now, the article does point out that you do need regular recovery weeks every 3 to 5 weeks, and that's when you would take a step back week. And the article suggests doing this by eliminating the long run or reducing the volume of those higher intensity efforts. But you'll figure that out as you go along. Point is that rest and recovery really help, and they will make you better. They'll make you faster. The fourth way to avoid running injuries is to watch your running technique. And honestly, I'm not sure where I sit on this one. Now, yes, what the article is saying is that when you're running, you start getting tired, your running technique kind of breaks down. And by that, I mean when you get tired, you're probably going to start to shuffle. You're not picking up your feet as much. You might start bunching up your shoulders because you get intense. You might not be swinging your arms in the right way or a different way. And I guess what the article is referring to is that by watching your technique, you're just being mindful. And as we all know, it's good practice to be demure and mindful. And when you stay mindful of your running technique, you're going to maintain good form, which hopefully will avoid injuries. So next time you're out on the run, I want you to do this. I want you to actually think about your running technique while you're running. I want you to think about how your shoulders are sitting, how your arms are swinging. Are you running with a high cadence? And a high cadence is of course relative. Are your feet landing heavily, or are you bounding gracefully through your gait cycle like a gazelle? And I know a gazelle is somewhat ideal of an animal to imitate when we're out on the run. I'm sure there are others. So if you identify with a different animal when you're running, you drop that in the comment and let me know. Okay, the fifth way to avoid injuries is to mix up your training. And yeah, this is something that I do. I don't know on a daily basis. I run most of the time, but I also incorporate some elliptical time, and I spend a lot of time in the gym doing weights. But the article suggests things like cycling, rowing, and other cross-training things. That's just so you don't get burned out or you don't put too much running stress on your body. Now, again, there are a couple of schools of thought on this, and perhaps if you are a new runner or you are an injury-prone runner, this is a great way to go. But of course, if you look at some of the pro runners, I think it's probably highly unlikely they're spending too much time on the elliptical, although I bet you every single one of them is in the gym. So maybe there's something to that. Mix up your training. It'll make you a more well-rounded athlete and a better runner. Speaking of doing other things, the sixth way to avoid injuries is to stay strong, and you stay strong by going to the gym, lifting weights. And I say lifting weights as like a catch-all expression because it's not all about just lugging heavy weights around the gym. There's a lot to be said for simple body weight exercises. You know what I mean? Squats, lunges, push-ups, all of these are going to make you a stronger runner. And of course, if you already go to the gym on a regular basis, you've probably got stuff that you already do. Again, there are a lot of programs online that you can follow if you need some ideas to know what exercises to actually do. For me, I am still a subscriber of Peloton, although I don't get on the bike too much anymore. But whenever I'm in the gym, I do follow their weight classes. And I find they are just a great way to get in my workout in a short amount of time. Because if you've ever gone to the gym and you'll do a few sets and then you'll stop and you'll talk to someone, then you kind of get off track and you might do something else that wasn't what you wanted to focus on that day. Well, with these Peloton classes that I follow, I will usually do 20 minutes at a time, and it just takes me through step by step. A bunch of exercises, repeating them several times, building in appropriate rest breaks, and then at the end of those 20 minutes, I feel like I've got a really good workout. It works well for me. And you don't have to join Peloton. There are really loads of things out there that you can follow. Moving right along. The seventh way to avoid running injuries is to warm up and cool down. And this makes perfect sense on the surface, although like everything else, if something is easy to do, it's also easy not to do. And I think a lot of runners are still skipping their warm up and cool down. By a lot of runners, sort of mean me. Although I do warm up longer than I ever have, in the last 10 years of running, probably in the last year, I have really started focusing on warming up. And even though I knew I should probably do it a little longer, I do start every run with some leg swings. And I'm talking about leg swings in all ways. I do that shoeing chicking motion. You put one foot out in front of you and then you scoop up like that. Kind of stretches the hamstrings. I really like that one. I do some half-hearted quad stretches where you bring your foot up to your butt. But mostly for me, I like to start easy. Start my running easy and then kind of build into it. And some days when I'm feeling a little sore, I am quite amazed how easy I can actually start my run. It's really impressive how slow I can run. Anyway, on from that, when I finish my run, this is where I really struggle. It's cooling down. Because when I'm done with my run, I'll usually sit on the bench right outside my house. I'll stop my watch, I'll upload it to Strava, and then I'll go inside and I'll take off my clothes and jump in the shower and go to work or get on with my day. Something like that. Really not giving myself a chance to cool down. Now, the good thing, for me at least, when I'm creating content, when I want to take photos or I want to take a video at the end of my run, that's when I get a really good chance to cool down because I'm usually walking around doing that. So I will stop my run and I'll walk back and forth, maybe setting up the shots, maybe holding my phone, and I'm actually just actively moving around and not just stopping my run and then sitting down or jumping in the shower and then sitting down. So sometimes I think I do all right, other times not so much. So this is another thing that I want to hear from you about. Look, I'm sure most of you warm up some way, but the cool down, again, I think it's a little more tricky. How do you cool down? Drop a comment and let me know. The eighth way to avoid running injuries is to run off-road. Now, I think what the article is talking about is just mixing it up. Don't do the same thing over and over again, right? We've already heard that with doing other things like going to the gym, doing cross-training, doing weights. But the article also suggests running off-road. And obviously the point of this is to mix up the surfaces that you're running on, right? That can't hurt, especially if you run on the road a lot and that road is cambered, your body's going to get used to it and kind of be all janky. I don't know, by running on trails or mixing up trails with running on the road, you're kind of going to get stronger all over. Now, the article suggests running on trails half the time. And I don't know, I guess it depends on what you're actually training for or what you want to do. I wish I could run on trails half the time, but most of the time I need to get my run in, right? It's an actual task that I need to check off for the day, and I need to do that in the most efficient way possible. And because I don't have any trails within running distance of my house, or at least short running distance, it's very difficult for me to run on trails. So generally I don't run on trails unless I'm testing a trail shoe. But if you do have the option, maybe it's a good thing to mix up, like run on some trails, run on some roads. Probably gonna like running on the trails a little more. It seems to be a lot more enjoyable, you know, with the nature and all that. But it doesn't even have to be trails, like gravel paths, anything that is different from like the concrete surfaces of a path or the asphalt of a road. Now, drop a comment and let me know your favorite running surface. How's that? Number 9, the 9th way to prevent injuries is to find the right running shoe. This is probably my favorite one. And in my ongoing lifelong quest to avoid running injuries, I am lucky enough to run in a lot of running shoes. But anyway, about the shoes. Look, you can't always trust the reviewers, or you can trust the reviewers, but what they say isn't always going to be true for you. So you do have to try and find what works best for you. Now, there was a study done at the University of Calgary that had the runners pick a bunch of shoes and rate them from their least comfortable to the most comfortable. And then they assessed their fitness on a treadmill. And wouldn't you know it, the runners did better when they ran in shoes that were the most comfortable. I mean, I'm glad that that hypothesis was supported, but it seems like we probably should have known that, right? Things are easier when we're comfortable. So all that to say, if you are looking for a pair of running shoes, I think comfort needs to be the number one thing. Oh, and also it's important to remember that a single pair of shoes probably isn't going to meet all of your needs, right? We probably get this drilled into us every time we turn on YouTube and we have another running shoe review to look at. You're going to need a shoe for those easy days. You're going to need a shoe for when you're picking up the pace, you know, like those tempo runs. If you're going to run a little bit faster on intervals, you might need a shoe for that. If you're one of these people that likes to run different distances, you may need a 5K, 10K shoe, a half marathon shoe, a marathon shoe. Now with Mount the Coast making ultra marathon shoes, you're probably going to want to pick up some of those. No, but look, I jest. Well, I sort of jest. We do need a couple pairs of shoes. Your life will be easier if you have a couple different tools in the toolbox. But in all honesty, you probably don't need, 10 pairs of shoes. I mean, I need 10 pairs of shoes. I hope my wife isn't listening out there, because I definitely need all my shoes. Anyway, the 10th way to avoid running injuries is to very simply listen to your body. And in this one, I thought this was a bit funny, but the article starts off this section by saying that I can't promise you that you won't feel sore during marathon training. Seems like a funny way to say it. In fact, I'll go on record right here as saying that I can promise you that you will feel sore during marathon training. It's pretty normal. And if you saw my video last week, we actually talked about running on sore legs. So if you didn't watch it, go back and check that out. I mean, after we're done here. Look, the point is that you are going to be sore, but you have to kind of be able to parse out the difference between soreness and pain, or pain that is soreness and pain that is an injury, or an injury approaching. As you can tell by the way I'm talking about it, it's pretty nuanced and it's pretty individual. So just listen to your body. Look, if you have some pain that is changing your running technique, that's a problem. If you have a pain or discomfort that lingers more than a couple of days, it could be a problem. If you have a running pain that goes away but comes back every time you run, again, might be a problem. And of course, if there is no improvement after a couple of days of rest, it may be worth seeing a doctor. And I mean like a real doctor, not a YouTube doctor, Dr. Google. Although even though I just gave you that advice, I must admit the first place I go when I have like a little bit of pain is right online. And more often than not, it does tell me that I have a running injury and also probably cancer. But that's the danger of getting your medical advice online. Anyway, if you have been entertained by this video, I'd love it if you gave it a thumbs up. And if you have made it to this point, I want you to put the butterfly emoji in the comments, just so I know that you made it till this point in the video. And obviously the butterfly is because, we want to kind of float like a butterfly when we're on the run, something like that. Anyway, it's Matt B. This has been 10 tips to prevent you getting injured on the run. Be kind, be happy, run well. See you in a couple of days.